Masechta bava basra daf mem vav amud aleph. We're starting from the fourth line from the top. We learned the machlekes between Rabba and Abaya. Rabba says that when it comes to the pshat in the Mishnah that uman ein le chazaka, so Rabba holds that it's talking about when there are edim that testify that he gave it to the uman to fix whatever garment to be tailored or to be clean, and we see the garment in the uman's hands. Abaya says, no, just you don't need the edim. Just by the mere fact that the garment is in the uman's hands, that is enough to say that the uman doesn't have a chazakah. So now the Gemara is going to ask on Rabbah, who says you need both conditions: side that that there were edim that saw him give over the chayfetz, whatever the garment, to be fixed, and side that it's still in his issues. Masra Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak is on the sheet of Rabbah that we learned in the Mishnah Chazaka, that a woman doesn't have a chazaka, so we could be medayik. Uman hu dein le chazaka. Dafka uman, a tradesman, doesn't have a chazaka in the object that's found in his hand. But what's if it was another person who was not a uman? Yesh le chazaka. He does have a chazaka when the chayfetz is in his hand in the same conditions of when what we spoke about by a uman not having chazaka. Those same conditions, if it would be in a person who was not a uman, it would be a chazaka. Like what's the case talking about? If it's talking about that there were edim that saw that the original bailam gave over the chayfetz or the object to be fixed, why by another person is there chazaka? And we have to be talking about not only that there was edim that testified that he gave over the garment to be fixed, but we see it by the ummah, or whoever, or even by the acher, like the Rashbam explains. Because if you're going to talk about that, we don't see it by him. Even Rabbah agrees that even though there was Adam, he has a migu that he could have hid it and say he returned it. And so believe me that when I took that I bought it, I'll show it to you, but I bought it because I could have hid it and say that I returned it to you. Obviously, we're talking about why is the Uman not believed? Because we also had seen it in the Uman's issues. So Elalav says the Gemara by Acha Ma Yesh Lechazaka, even if he gave it as a pikadon to another person in front of Adam, he gave it as a pikadon. And we know that Rabbi Taka retracted. He says one who gives a pikadon in front of Adam doesn't have to pay back in front of Adam. And we're talking about that we see it in the Baal HaPikadon's issues. Why should he be able to say that he bought it? Elalav, only we have to say it's talking about the lake Adam. It's talking about there were no Adam testifying that it was given as a pikadon. And there was no Adam, just like by the Uman, there was no Adam that are testifying that he gave it to fix. Uketani, but nevertheless, we learned Uman ain't chazaka. Uman doesn't have a chazaka if we only see it by the Uman. A Uman won't have a chazaka, like it comes out like a baya. But by acher, but that even though we see it, he does have a chazaka because acher doesn't usually have stuff given to him to fix. So even though we see the object by him, he could say that he bought it. So it's a kasha to Yufta the Rabbah, it's a kasha and Rabbah. Because from here, the only way that we were able to be medayik, that Dafka Uman doesn't have a chazaka, but Ache does have a chazaka. Which case are we talking about that there will be a difference between a Uman and a Ache? Could only be talking about when that there were no Eidim. That there was only that we saw the object in the Uman's hands, and by the Acha we saw it by the Baal HaPikadon's hands. So by a Uman, we're going to say if we saw it, like Abaya says, once you've seen it, so he cannot. It's not a chazaka because it's normal that people give him things to fix. But if it's a Acha, it's going to be a chazaka. So to Yufta the Rabbah. To Yufta, it's a kasha and Rabbah. It's a good kasha and Rabbah because Rabbah says you need the additional condition that the Adam should testify that there were Adam testifying that he gave it to fix. It's just like By Omer won't be a chazaka. According to this, there wouldn't be a difference between Ache if the Eidim that testified that he gave it in front of, that he gave it as a pekadon, and he still has it there. The Rabbah wouldn't be mechalik in between the two. But according to Abaya, we can make that diuk that it's when it says in the Mishnah, we can be medayik that it's talking about that only that we saw it in his rishus. So by Uman it won't be a chazaka, but by Yacha it will be a chazaka. We could be misakim, make a sikkim here. Number one, according to everybody, that malva, not just a malva, is somebody who gives something in front of Eidim as a pekadin or to a Uman. He doesn't have to pay back in front of Eidim. And according to Rabbah, you need both conditions in order that it should be, in order that the Uman shouldn't have a chazaka. And if there was no, according to Rabbah, of course, if there was no Eidim that they see, if we don't know, we don't see it in his issues, then even though there were Eidim that saw it give it over, it's not going to be. It's not the Ummah will be able to taina that it was his. Without maybe with a shvur, but he will be able to taina that it's his. Okay, so you want to tell me if his begodim got exchanged by the tailor or by the cleaners with other begodim, the base Ummah, where did it get exchanged? In the tradesman's house, that he gave over a beggar to be tailored, to fix, and then when he came to the tailor gave him somebody else's beggar, and he didn't recognize it till he came home. He's allowed to use it. It says that in the Mishnah that he can use the other person's beggar, and he's not considered as a shoyl shalem daita, like somebody who was borrowing something without the knowledge of his friend, which is also. And the Gemara will explain why. Till the Baal, the owner of this beggar that he's wearing now, will come and take his beggar back because it was exchanged. Then, only then, he has to give it back, but till then he can use it. The basa, what's if his code got mixed up with somebody else's code in a basa or in a basa mishta, in a mourning house, or in a by a simcha? Then he's not allowed to use it till the friend gives him back. His friend comes, takes his, then he could and then he could take his own back, but he cannot use his friend's garment. Here, there's the Aruch HaShulchan that says if it's a kaloshin, if it's rubbers, and you come to a shul and it gets mixed up. The Aruch HaShulchan paskins that you could take the other person's because it doesn't have much of a worth. By hat also, but Moshe Feinstein argues with that. And then Moshe Feinstein says that not by hats. Hats is a much more expensive item. But Bichlal, the best way to do it is when even by the cheap stuff, to put up a sign that whatever happens in the kaloshin, in the rubbers, it's allowed to be exchanged. Zok the Gemara. Why in the Reisha, when it got exchanged in the house of the Uman, do we say he's allowed to use the beggar of the person, of the beggar that's not his, if the Uman gave it to him? And why, if he himself made the exchange, he cannot use it? I was sitting in front of Chavivi. And who is Chavivi? That's my uncle Rabbi Chia. And I asked him the shayla. And he said to him, is it not the derech of people who give their items to be fixed and tell them, if you could sell it, please sell it? And that's the case over here. That he sold, the guy told him to sell it, and by mistake he sold the garment of another person. So in exchange, he gave the garment that it was supposed to be sold to this person. The halach is he's allowed to give him that garment because first of all he already bought it. So it already belongs to the Uman, this baguette, because he gave the money. He gave the money to Shimon. This baguette is not anymore. Let's say there's Reuben and Shimon, and Reuben gave him a baguette to fix and told him if you find somebody to sell it, sell it. And Reuben's and the tailor sold Shimon's baguette, so the tailor could give Reuben's baguette to Shimon. And it's not going to be like Shoyl Shalem Yadaita. because Reuben got his money for the beged. So this beged of Reuben that he's giving to Shimon, there's no problem with it because it belongs to the tailor already. Reuben got his money, so Shimon could use it. And he could tell the tailor could tell him, use it till I figure out and fix the problem. Or you could tell him, look, you can keep it in exchange. And that's not a problem. And that's why it's not considered Shel Shleim Daite. We didn't learn this din Elahu only if the Uman himself gave the beged to the person that's not gave the beged that's not doesn't belong to that person, and he gave it to him. But what's if the wife or the children of the tailor gave it to him? Loy. Then they're not allowed. He's not allowed to use it because it's reasonable to say that if they give him that they gave them the other person's beged bitos. But Hunami and he himself, even the tradesman, loy amaram. We did not say that he could give the person to use the beged that's not his. Only if he said talis stam, meaning that he knew what he was doing. That he's giving this talis because he knew that he's not giving him his personal talis, and like the story before, he's giving him the talis that was supposed to be sold. Instead, he sold this guy's talis, so he's allowed to give him this talis. But if he prefers to say that here's your talis, Lloyd, then he's not allowed to use that talis because in this case, I love talis the dehu. It's not his talis. So obviously, the Umam surely made a mistake. And he's not allowed to give somebody else's talis to another person to wear. And that's why the person who got it and knows that it's not his talis, he's not allowed to use it if he said talischa, if it says your talis. Abaya said to Rabba, come, and I will show you the crafty ganavim of Pumbedisa. What do they do? Amalei, a person goes to the Uman in Pumbedisa, he says, Havli Sabalai, give me my cloak that I had given to you to be tailored. The tailor says, I never gave you this bag to fix. He says, I have witnesses that had seen my cloak by you. The tailor says, no, that's somebody, that's a different cloak, it's not yours. So the owner says, bring out the me'il and let the Adam see if it's mine or not. Outside, I'm not taking it out for you, because you're not sure and you want to make a whole case out of it. Rava says the guy told him the Uman came with a richte ketaina. He's not mechuyev to take out the beged and show it. He's not mechuyev. Abaya says that this you could see, since he knew that if he takes it out, the Edom would be able to be machish and say it is his. So that's why he didn't want to show it, and really he cannot demand them to show it. That's how tricky, the crafty they are. Where do we see that? Because in Tanya, we learned before in the previous Baraisa, Aman Hey Yom Beis, that a person who had seen his chayvetz in the Shus Uman, that means that he saw it with Eidim, then the Uman cannot taina that it's not his. But Kol's man that we don't have Eidim testifying clearly that he has it, the Uman is not mechuyev to show it to him, and he's stuck. Avashi said, if this owner is smart, he could figure out how to trick the Ramai to show it to him. The Amalei says to him quietly, why'd you grab this baguette? Only because I owe you money, right? And you're concerned that I'm going to deny the chayv, I'm not going to pay it. Therefore, you want to hold back this baguette connected the chayv. He says, Hashta, kinu v'shaminu. He says, just take out the meal. Let's evaluate. I have two professionals that are going to evaluate it. Shkol atidach. You'll take what, meaning you'll take what's deserving for you. and I'll take what's deserving for me, and you'll keep the beggar. I'll make a cheshbon how much money I owe you, how much the beggar is worth more. You'll give me that extra, and you'll keep the beggar. And this way, the Ramai wants that because he wants to be able to go outside with the beggar and not feel that people will be able to see the beggar, and he'll have to keep on hiding it, because if they see it, then he'll lose it. So he has to keep on hiding it. He can't sell it to anybody in the city either. So he'd rather cut a deal, so it'll be beheta. Says the woman could get him back. He could figure out his trickery, and he says, I don't need your evaluation. I already evaluated before you came with your professionals here, and I know that that we're equal. It's not worth any more than the schum of the chayv that you owe me, and therefore I don't have to take it out. And that's how. Okay, a sharecropper doesn't have a chazaka, meaning it's a sadr that's known to us that this person came there, B'teres Harisas, as a sharecropper, so he can't say, "Oh, I'm here already 3 years eating the paytas, so it belongs to me." In fact, the Gemara, why isn't it a chazaka for the others if he was there for 3 years? Ada idna palga. Till now, I was only eating like a sharecropper. I used to get half of the produce of the field. That's what I used to take. But v'hashta kula. But now, for the last 3 years, I've been taking the whole thing. So why shouldn't it be chazaka? We're talking about Arisim, that he's there for decades in the family, and therefore he is trusted to take 3 years of full, and then the next few years it would go back to the balabais would take all the produce. So this is only about others that's there for decades. He's in the family for many years. Rav Nachman said that even the others that's there for decades in the house, he's a family others, but if this others hired other harisim to come and work in the field, then yesh le chazaka. He does have chazaka. If he himself is not in the field, he hired other workers to do the sharecropping, so then the others would have chazaka. My time, what's the reason? A person is not, it's not the type of a person to allow strange harisim in his field without rishus and keep quiet, because they could destroy his field. So therefore, if he didn't see his others there, it should have been a chazaka, because the balamatim should have immediately made a macha. Rabbi Yechon, others that's there for decades, shechalak la'arisim, that he divided the produce with the other harisim that were there, but he was, meaning divided the work. He gave some harisim to do this work, and he was also doing work, but he wasn't doing all the work. Then ein le chazaka, he doesn't have a chazaka. My time, and what's the reason? How is this case different? Because Eimer hamanya ba'alma shaviyua. He says, I could say that the Baal HaSalda gave him a shus to work in such a eifim, because he knew that it's too hard for him to do, and he needs people to help him. Mashek, in the previous case, where there were other harisim that were working without him, without the main artist, the family artist being there, it's not the derech of the owners to be masking to such a thing. And surely the only reason why there were other harisim without the official artists, meaning the family artist being there, then that's a raya that, and the Baal HaSada, the owner, didn't say a word, is a raya that he bought it, and it's a good chazaka. Rav Nachman sent a shaila to Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak. Yamdeinu Rabbeinu, Oris Meyit, teach us, Rebbe, Oris, could he testify for the owner of the field? Because Amar came, there's a Reuven owned the field. Shimon was the Oris. Levi came to take away the field from Reuven, saying it doesn't belong to Reuven. Could the Oris testify for that it does belong to Reuven, or Yeinameid, or he's unable to testify? Zog, you want to have a Yosef Rav Yosef Kamei. Rav Yosef was sitting before Rav Nachman Rav Yaakov when this shaila came to him. Amalei, so he said to Rav Nachman, Shmuel. This is what Shmuel said. Oris Meir, that Oris could testify. Tanya, but we learned in the Braisa but we learned in the Braisa that others cannot testify. Says the Gemara like Kasha. This is not a question. Says the Gemara, why not? So he says, because this Braisa is talking about the Ikapeda Ba'ara, that the artist has land, has paid his still produce that are connected, that were not cut off yet. So if he won't testify, if this field, he wants to testify it belongs to Reuben, because if Levi will take it away, if Levi will take it away, Shimon, the artist, will lose from the produce that wasn't yet cut. So he has a pniya to say that it belongs to Reuben. And where could he testify? The lake of Peribada, that he doesn't have penis in the field that has to be cut. He has nothing there, so there he can testify. He says to Rashbam that the Lechera, he's losing the job, that in the future he's going to continue to be an artist. Says Rashbam, that's not considered as a paniya, because he can get the job as an artist by other Bali Sadis. And the Rashbam says even more so. Who says that he's going to accept him, continue to hold him as an artist? Amalek is an abbreviation is a siman of the four categories, Arev, Malva, Loik, Elekech, and Kablan, that in all these cases, we're going to talk about if they could testify for the owner. Arev made leleva. Arev means a guarantor, that if the leva, the halacha is, if the leva borrows money from the malva, so if the leva doesn't have the money, you can go to the arev. That's only if you take the leva to Bezdin, and the leva loses, then you can go to the arev. So we're saying the arev, the guarantor, could testify that the field belongs to the leva, right? The arev has a pniya, he has a reason to do it, he's negeya. Why? Because if this field won't be by the leva, he'll be able to, so they'll come to the arev. So the arev wants that field should be by the leva, so the malva can collect from the leva's field instead of coming to the arev. Says here it's talking about it's talking about that the leva has other land, and we don't have to be concerned that that he has an negay this, because the malva has other land to collect from. So the Ashbam, yes, maybe the other lands he also needs for other halvas that he had taken. So what are you going to say? So the Ashbam says, we're not choishish. So malva, the next case, a malva made leva. A malva could testify for the leva, meaning the lender could testify for the borrower that the land belongs to him. So you're going to say the reason why he's doing it so that he should be able to collect, have where to collect from. Says no, he's not doing it for that reason, because we'll do the islay that the lawyer has other kakois from where the malva is able to collect. So that's why the malva could testify for the leva that this land belongs to him, and he's not negay b'edus because he has where to collect from the other properties. He's a wealthy man. Next case, the third case, the halacha is that if Reuven owes money to Shimon, and Reuven sells one karka to Levi, another karka to Yehuda, so Reuven who owes money to Shimon, so where would Shimon collect from? The last buyer, from Yehuda. Reuven sold to Levi first, and then he sold to Yehuda second. So Shimon would owe the first money that he has to collect from is from Yehuda. So we're saying the first lekeach could testify for the second lekeach that the land belongs to the lekeach. The second lekeach, he's saying that the land belongs to the second lekeach because if they take away the land from the second lekeach, they'll come to the first lekeach. So he's a negay b'edus. Says you want to know the second lekeach has other karka. But who do you slay arachita? It's talking about that the second lekech has other land from where to collect from. So therefore, he's not in the Gebe. Now we're going to talk about it. What about lekech sheni? Could the second lekech for sure could testify for the first lekech? The second lekech could testify for the first lekech because and if the first lekech bought a field b'achrayis, but if the first lekech bought it b'achrayis, so then the first lekech will get back his field, and so therefore they're going to have to go back to the second lekech. So the lekech is cheshes. Maybe they'll take it out from the first one. Betainas gzela. We're going to read it over here. It says, "Ahima lekech hasheni kosh leheit l'rishin." Here the Rashbam brings a new din. If the second lekech is permissible, kosher to testify for the first lekech, and he says you can with this you can make a chilik. Ima lekech harishon kones asadeyu b'achrayis. If the first lekech bought his field with achrayis, so harei lekech sheni chayshesh. The second lekech is afraid or is concerned. Shema yitzirus asada miyad harishin b'tainis gzela. Maybe they're going to take away the first field from the first buyer, b'tainis gzela u'mekayich achrayis, and because he has a guarantee, because he got a guarantee on his field. So and the second field was sold after his field, so the second lekech will lose his field now because the second field was sold as a lien for the first lekech. The lekech took out a lien, meaning a guarantee on his field, the first lekech, that if he sells another field, that second field is liened if the first field will be taken away. So we have to be concerned that he's going to be able to collect from the second lekech. Hilkach, in such a case, we can't accept the edus of the lekech hasheni to say that it belongs to lekech harishon if the lekech harishon bought it with achrayis, because we have to be afraid that the lekech hasheni is doing it because he's on the line, because his field is the guarantee for the first lekech if it gets taken away from him. So therefore, the second lekech, in such a case, if he took achrayis, he won't be able to testify for the first lekech, unless that the meicha has other karka. If the seller has other karka where he could collect from the meicha itself, kablan out of kablan is that he collects the money from the malva and he gives it to the leiva. Now the malva can collect from the kablan equally, just like he could collect from the leiva. Others say that the out of kablan can testify that it belongs to the leiva, and others say he cannot. Those that say he could testify, but of course, but deny that the leiva has other karka for the malva to collect the chayv. Ka'arev dummy, because he's similar to any other arev. Because like a regular arev, of kablan, just like a regular arev could testify for the leiva if the leiva has other karka. So too, the Aruch Kabbalah could testify. Others say he cannot testify. Because the reason why the Aruch Kabbalah is testifying, because he wants that the leiva should have a variety of properties from which the Baal Chayv would want to collect from. The Kiyas Baal Chayv, when the Baal Chayv will come to collect the Chayv, whatever he wants, he can take. So if he has a choice, if the leiva will have now a choice of Beinanis and Ziburias, and the Baal Chayv is allowed to take Beinanis, so he'll rather go to the leiva who has Beinanis than going to the Aruch Kabbalah and just getting Ziburias.